Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sphere of Being, the podcast which is all about caring for those who care for others. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be in a traditional caring environment, like caring for a loved one or an elderly relative, or being in a care home. This could be for employers who have people that in their work, they have employees, they have leaders. It could even be that the employees and the leaders can care for the people in charge as well, because as leaders, sometimes it could be a bit of a lonely job out there. I've got the wonderful guest, Hamish Niven, who is just such an all-round amazing, caring for the whole world, I think, without putting it too strongly. Got such a brilliant mission out there to help people, especially men, with alcohol addiction, sorry, to have lives that perhaps they didn't dream were possible at their darkest moments, and speaks from the heart because he's been forged in the fire, as they say. So it's wonderful. Hamish had a childhood where his father had very much control of his family narrative, and he found it very difficult to have a voice with his father. And that obviously led to things perhaps and coping mechanisms that didn't quite serve him later in life. But he moved to South Africa, and unfortunately, or maybe because it was meant to be, the alcohol addiction that he had manifested itself in a larger capacity. And that meant that he had to really rethink his life and came back to the UK. He's now actually caring as part of his family for his father, who now has Alzheimer's. And I believe that there has been a reconciliation so that they're moving forward together now in a path that's going to be much more fulfilling and loving as the years pass. So, Hamish, welcome. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to catch up with you and share a little bit about my story. So thank you for this.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And in the sense that as a child, you had a dominant father, a person in your life, your caregiver. What did that leave you with as you were growing up, not having that voice? How did that put you in your own shoes in the world?
That's a really interesting question. And the first thing that sprang to mind was rage, absolute rage. I wasn't allowed a voice. I wasn't allowed to have an opinion. He still does it now. It's quite remarkable. When he's had enough, right, we're doing it this way. End of story. It's like, nope. It is. It's remarkable. It is really, really remarkable. But it was that, and so I just fought. He was very tidy. I'm very messy, which actually has not put me in very good state because I'm dropping things and breaking things and not paying attention and stuff. So it's actually not served me for fighting him. But at the time, it pissed him off, and he deserved it. That was my way of coping. So it made me fight, and we fought all of our lives, and it wasn't nice. It really wasn't. He was not a role model, which was unfortunate because I loved him. He wasn't present. He was busy making us a beautiful home and a beautiful part of the world. But as a kid, you want daddy to be there. Don't break promises. He doesn't turn up home. Promises are broken. Don't lie. And then, well, I can't come home today, but you promised you would. That's a lie. Children are so binary. It's so simple. So it was all this conflict. And in the end, it was just like, well, I'm not engaging. So I didn't. And everything became transactional. Work, we had to do the gardening, this, that, and the other before we could watch telly. So everything was transactional. And unfortunately, that has affected most of my relationships. I've got some good friends, but a lot of them have been transactional. Not so much as what can I get from you, but, give and take rather than receive and share. Yeah, and it took to going to rehab, leaving South Africa with nothing, to realize that there must be another way of doing things.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that, because I think from the perspective of the child and being compassionate with ourselves as that small child, trying to make sense of the world and the reaction that one has from one's parents, when we're learning in that way and we're creating a hardwiring, as I like to call it, and the synapses of the brain, they're wiring together in certain ways. If I do this, this result happens, etc. So that means that it's going to get, over time, the repetition of that is going to get hardwired into the brain.
Mm.
If you could look back on that small Hamish, what advice would you be able to give little Hamish?
I've done a lot of work there. I mean, the a big turning point was one Sunday morning, no, afternoon, after church. Dad was sitting on the sofa reading his newspaper, just sitting there reading his newspaper. I sat next to him. I wanted to play. Doesn't matter what, I can't remember what, but it was like not interested. So I was busy reading his newspaper next to him, and I got told to go away because that was his time. His tradition was afternoon sitting there. And I have had to recreate that whole narrative. I now sit next to him with a Beano upside down. My dad there, me reading the Beano upside down. But I had to go through hell to reconfigure that. So I've basically had to sit down next to Hamish and say, dude, he's busy. He's doing his stuff. Leave him do it. Sit down and let's read the Beano together. So this Hamish sat next to little Hamish and said, let's read a magazine together. And I've had to go through incidents like that and then just sit next to me, aged 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever, and just go, I've got you. You know, we can get through this. Let's change the story. Let's make it happy. And I've had to do that, but the only reason I worked out how to do that is because I was shown. People told me how to make sense of things like that. Dealing with the inner child and loving the poor little bugger who was distraught.
Mm, yeah. Now that you are looking through a different lens, and as I can't remember, I think it was Einstein, but you'll probably know better than me, is that the way that if we see the world in a different way, the world changes. There's a better way of saying it, but ostensibly that's what it is. The way that we view the world is our reality, but not necessarily the truth. Sitting down there with little Hamish, what do you think now as an adult? Have you delved into what could have happened to your father to make him the product that he was?
No, I haven't. I know I know some of his history a fair amount. I don't think that's important for my healing, but I do realize that he was doing the best that he could. I do realize that he worked very hard, long hours, as I mentioned beforehand. He wasn't always present. Sundays was go to church, have lunch, and then he would sit down and read the newspaper. That was his routine. That was his wind down time. And that's what he wanted. He still loved me. He just wanted that. So I've had to realize that that was his best. Whatever his reasons for that, wanting time off, that's fine. But as I said, little Hamish didn't understand. Dad doesn't love me, doesn't want me around, and all that stuff that we do as kids. So I I don't think it's necessary to psychoanalyze my dad and see what his stuff was going back. I can't change the past, but I can change how I understand it and how I deal with my past and make sense of it.
So that you used the word that you knew that your dad loved you. How did you come to that conclusion? What work did you do to understand that your dad loved you?
That was Father's Day 2 years ago. Yeah. I was looking at my story and, my dad's never there. He doesn't love me and all this nonsense. Just like, that's not true. You know, I know that's not true. I know he does love me because he tells me. He told me, even growing up, he told me. So I had to look at that story. I was going to say something else. I had to look at that story and go, is it really true? And I was like, no, it's not true. Damn it, I'm going to have to rewrite my own story. I can no longer say, oh, my dad didn't, oh, poor Hamish, his dad didn't love him, he was never there, and all that nonsense that we do to get energy from people, to get validation from other people. So I had to look at that and say, is it true? And then go, it's not true. And then there's now a hole in my narrative where Hamish's dad doesn't love him isn't true. So there's a hole. So I had to fill that with the truth that I had lied about. So it was uncomfortable. But I had to realize that he does love me, and he really does. And now, as I'm looking after him more and more, he does, and he's grateful, and he's appreciative, and we get on better. I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. But I had to look at my story and realize that every time I told it, I added a little bit of bullshit, a little bit of nonsense, a little bit poor me, a bit of oh, she's nice, let's try and tell a story and get her hooked in, and all that stuff. So the story was 45 years old and rewritten 100 million times. So yeah, it's not true.
Mm.
So I
And that,
had to.
yeah, thank you. That narrative, it wasn't the truth.
Mm,
And the embellishment that went on with it, I think that I know I've done this many,
mm,
many times, is to justify my own feeling of being a victim in this.
mm.
How did you move from victimhood to stepping into your power and your truth?
Um, by choosing not to be a victim, by actually taking accountability and saying that story is not true, and I can either lie to myself because I'm not allowed to lie and I don't want to lie and it's unhealthy and it doesn't do me any good. So I had to just become responsible for it and own it and just say, yep, that's not true. The truth is he does. Um, and the best thing was it was freeing. I was able to tell the truth, take responsibility. Those lovely words, responsibility and accountability that nobody likes. However, it just set me free. It stopped me being dragged down and feeling disempowered and I can feel the energy. I'm just more buoyant from not carrying that lie around. And if that's not good enough reason to feel lighter, then I don't know what is, because it is spectacular. Yeah.
Would you say, I'm going to use a very strong word here, it can be very emotive. Would you say that you needed to forgive yourself and your father in that process?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very much. Mostly myself, because he was doing his best. I was doing my best, but mostly I had to look at 45, 46, 48 years of lie and go, that wasn't actually true. I'm doing him a disservice. And this is the, I'm not going to say shameful bit because it's not, because I didn't know better. But I realized I was grating his knuckles. I was deliberately drinking the poison and trying to poison my dad. Um, and that's a crap thing to say, that I was deliberately making his life misery by being messy and going, too bad, serves you right. All that kind of stuff. Through my entire life, I was pressing his buttons, as children do, just to say, sod you because you have made my life difficult. So I was being no better than him, and I didn't know better. But now, as you said, the Einstein thing, looking down at it from a different perspective, I realized I had done that. So I just had to go back and forgive myself, age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through, which was a remarkable thing to do, and really, really empowering. And I did, and I forgave him. Sometimes I still have to forgive him when I leave him. It's just like, "Grr. I forgive you for being a pain in the ass, Dad. I do love you, but please try a bit harder and things like that." But I
Mm,
had to forgive myself, yeah,
mm.
and him.
Yeah, forgiveness, as a former abuse and trauma survivor from my guardians, it didn't make it right,
No.
but I can forgive them. And that was a massive, huge, enormous
Mm.
relief.
Yeah.
It was freedom.
Yeah, it
Forgiveness
is.
about freedom. Yeah, absolutely. And I say to anybody who's in a situation, and it can be horrific because I've been through pretty horrific stuff. Don't take my word for it. Everybody thinks for themselves. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not
No.
condoning what happened. I'm not saying that whatever anybody did to child, however horrific it was, or to a person in older life, that's not right. But there's a certain freedom if one can forgive. And if you can't, that's not such a bad thing either. Have compassion with yourself, because we all understand we have a journey, and not forgiving is okay. But if we can, then it transcends the box that we almost make as our prison in that field. It's so liberating, as you say, it's so freeing. Um, and it can be incredibly difficult. And I think probably the forgiveness for me was the most difficult of all the things that so far to date I've been through on my personal development journey, my journey inwards. But it's been the most profound.
Mm.
And from that perspective, it's not something that happened instantaneously. It took a while, but when it happened instantly. Oddly enough, it was like a light switch going on and off. And then I knew I was at peace. And I'd forgiven myself as well in that whole process. And then I can feel it. The power from within is just so amazing, because then your heart, my heart, I can feel it now expanding and swelling with love, joy. Because for me, when I was in that constrict, in that confinement in my own prison, my heart couldn't enlarge because it just met the barriers and couldn't get any bigger. And depending on how small that little box is, it can close off our hearts immensely.
Yeah.
We can have open heart for other things because our heart is multifaceted, multidimensional. But from that element of it, it was a bit of it had atrophied, it had died. And by opening up, it swelled again with blood and oxygen and energy, etc. And I could literally, it was a physical feeling I could feel. So anybody that's on this journey, not forgiving is fine. I completely understand. But for those of us who can, it is quite incredible. And now the wonderful thing is that you're with your dad and you're helping with your family to care for him through his Alzheimer's. Did that forgiveness happen while you were doing that, or had it happened before?
It happened much more recently. It's a dance between doing it. I mean, as I said, it's transactional, so it's very easy to go there. Hi, Dad. Here's some food. Have a chat, small talk, and disappear. And sometimes it is like that. But the forgiveness bit has helped tremendously because we'll sit and chat. I still find it difficult to chat with him, mainly because he's not interested. He's just not interested in anything, and that's just where he is in life. You know, share an opinion. What I'm doing. Are you making money? I'm doing this. Are you making money? What's going on? And he's not cognizant enough to comprehend what I'm talking about. Um, that's just what it is. That's who he is, how he is, and with the illness, that's where he is. So we just don't go to certain places. I've realized a long time ago I'm not going to get that validation that Hamish, age 20, 30, 40, wanted, and that's fine. Um, Oh, yeah. I want to go back to the forgiveness bit. I think if you can get to a place of neutrality where there isn't that rage. You're not carrying a grudge. And it's just, I can't forgive you, but I'm not carrying that millstone, that anger. I think that is a profoundly important place to get to. If you can do the forgiveness, yes, but even if it's just, I'm not going to carry a grudge, I'm not going to forgive you, but I'm not going to let it eat me. I think that's, as you said, good enough. And that'll save you. That'll keep you going. Yeah.
Mm. And in the work that you're doing with especially men who are suffering from alcohol addiction, um, alcohol is a disease, as we know, that pervades all areas of the alcoholic's life. It seeps into their loved ones' lives, their employers, um, seeps into all sorts of friendships, etc., and the relationship that they have with themselves. Um, how does your work help people who are in the proximity or in the ecosystem of people, especially men with alcohol addiction?
Well, that is why I've emphasized this place of neutrality, because you've got to get from hating yourself, from shaming yourself, from feeling guilty, from oh, I wish I hadn't done that, to all these things to get to a place of it's happened. You know, I've driven drunk, I've let down my clients, I've been beastly to my wife, I've shouted at the children, I've kicked the dog, I've done a million things I wish I hadn't done, but I couldn't do any better. So by getting to that place of it's happened, I can't change the past. I'm not going to forgive myself because it doesn't matter. That's, as we said, that's part of that journey. But when you can just realize that that's where you are, you are here sitting there, and you can go, that's where I am, plain and simple. Then you've got a reference point to where you want to get to. So I'm drinking too much. I hate myself. I feel so ashamed for everything. But that's where I am. Now I want to get to here. I want to stop drinking. I want to show up for myself. I want to show up for my partner. I want to show up for my loved ones. My dad's sick, dying. My mum's sick, ill, whatever. I want to be present for them rather than going there going, I can't cope with you. Just get out of my way kind of stuff. You're so bottled up in anger and rage and frustration and guilt, and it's just a mess. So as soon as you can see that and where you want to go, you've now got a potential. You've now got two, a start and a finish. So you've now got that tension to get from one place to another. So I help people see where they are and go, yeah, that's where I am. I'm drunk. I'm this. I'm that. There's no shame. That's where I want to go to. So it's starts by seeing exactly where you are, because from there you can go anywhere. I want to be a builder. Well, you have to go to building school to be a builder. I want to get sober. Well, what are you at the moment? I'm not sober. 2 points. Now you can join them up. So you have to work out where you are. And that's uncomfortable because back to the shame, back to the guilt, back to I'm a bad person, all that nonsense. Yeah.
Which feels very real at the time,
Oh,
which
yeah.
feels insurmountably real at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And how would you say your work helps people step by step? I liken it to having a big tangled ball of wool that's all this mass of knots.
Mm.
How do you help people unravel that so that then they can create something wonderful from that yarn?
Kind of the other way, going back literally, where are you? So you can just sit there and just start to untangle it. Um, so without judgment, so it doesn't matter if it's lots of knots or a few knots. And then, as I said, to find where you want, what's important to you, what makes your heart sing, what makes you want to get up in the morning, what makes you want to work till 2 in the morning and still be, I am so energized, I'm loving what I'm doing. It's it's looking at what is aligned, because I loved the creative part of my business as a photographer. I wasn't aligned to aspects of it. Um, And it just made that discrepancy, and then I got bored and dissatisfied, and the drinking came in. And it's that when we're not loving it from our heart, when we're not doing what is important to us, there is that disconnect. I'm sure you've met it. Most people have. A midlife crisis is the usual name for it, or when the kids have left the nest, it's like, now what? I was mum, I was dad, now I don't have the kids. It's there is a hole. And so it's just looking at that, um, and then realizing that it's all inside. I can't get anything from outside to fix me. I just have to do it inside. So it's just looking at where you are, who you are, and no judging. There's no point. And observing from a different perspective, looking at your life from a different perspective.
Observing from a different perspective and non-judgment.
Mm.
How important do you think sitting with an emotion is?
Um, it's important for two reasons. One, because it's a message, and it is telling you that I'm angry because someone is pushing my buttons. I'm sad because I'm hurting. I'm lonely because I'm not able to communicate with people. But it comes and goes. Rage will come and it will go. Anger will come, and anger is probably the best emotion you can have, because that is when someone is pushing your buttons, when something isn't right for you. Lashing out's not the way to do it, but going, right, that isn't working, that gets you laser focused. You have to make a choice with emotions, because they they come at you, and then you've got that little gap between reaction, which is lash out, thump, cry, run away, isolate, play the victim, be the bully, whatever. Or you can look at that little space, and in that tiny little space is every single opportunity, every single universe, every single way you can do something different. But you have to stop and go, I'm going to choose something else. And then you can start responding. And when you do that, you say, I don't want to hit my friend who called me an idiot because of whatever. My outcome is we're going to stay friends. So I'm not going to thump him. I'm going to say something else. You have to take responsibility. It's the responsibility and the accountability word again. And it's that simple. So feel the emotions, feel the thoughts. They are stimulus. We are three-dimensional. Ouch, tears, result of pain, of emotional pain, whatever. We are physical bodies. We have these to sense emotions, feelings, touch, smell. They're just messages saying, hey, look at this. There's a lion behind you. Your beautiful partner's in front of you, you haven't seen for a day. You want a hug and all that love. They're just messages. They're not running your life. They're just messages. So yeah, sit with them and they will go. They will just flutter off. You'll get over that hurt. You'll get over losing somebody. You'll get over stubbing your toe. You'll get over a broken arm. You've survived everything so far. Yeah,
Mm.
it's not
How,
easy.
oh gosh, it's simple, but it sure isn't easy
It's
at
not
all.
easy.
Lifelong process. Once you're on
Oh
it,
yeah.
it's amazing, but getting
Yeah.
that step on is like, whoa, what a
Mm.
what a what a journey when you put your first step on, your foot on the first step. Wow. You've mentioned something that I'd like to think about: curiosity. How important is it to be curious about what we're going through?
I think it's the most important thing you can do. In fact, of the six steps that I share with people, that is number one: open-mindedness, curiosity. Because Deborah, is the only way to do things the way you do them.
Totally not. No,
There we are.
absolutely.
So, by that perspective, the way I do things is my way. The way you do it is yours. The way she does it is hers, his, hers, etc., etc. So, if I'm not going to be curious and listen to other people's perspectives, you know, I'm right, you're wrong because you don't like my opinions because, all this nonsense. If I'm going to listen to somebody else, they might have an outlook on life that is different. You know, 3 years ago, I decided I would be open-minded and be curious. And that was the beginning of my journey because I thought if someone is, I had three questions I'd ask. So, is what that person is doing, do they enjoy it? Are they living it? Are they embodying it? So they're not just snake oil tradesmen. Are they maybe even using it as part of their lifestyle or a business? Um, and are they kind? Are they nice people? Are they embodying it, living it, loving it? And if those three conditions were met, then that's fine. I met this amazing psychic medium. I was brought up Christian, psychic medium, completely the opposite. And yet she was a lovely, kind person. She was using it to help people. She didn't push it down my throat. And we had amazing conversations. And although it was very different, I was able to respect her opinion. And it led me on a journey and all sorts of things from choosing to be open-minded, being curious. And if I hadn't, it's like, well, you're a weirdo. You're one of those psycho what's it people's, a medium, and you go to hell and all that nonsense. The upbringing from my parents, by the way. So curiosity just allows you to be, I'm going to leave this thing open to potential. And there is so much potential. There is so much opportunity because, I only remember this one lifetime and there's a 6 or 7 million billion around me. So everyone's got different views on it. And some of them are right. They're all right for them, but some of them might be right for me. So it is magical to be curious.
That's wonderful. And it's uplifting and it's hopeful and it's got joy in it, which I think is a wonderful place to start to wrap up our conversation, because caring for those who care for others, we must always put our oxygen mask on first. We've always got to have enough fuel in the tank for us. There's nothing wrong with it. When we're in a bad place, or one of our loved ones or somebody that we know that we care about is in a bad space, curiosity with genuine love and compassion, that curiosity can lead us to ask the right questions. It can lead us into doing something different. And again, I'm quoting Einstein again when he said, if we always do the same things, we'll always get the same results, or a derivative of that. It's the fact when we're wanting to change is doing something different. And just maybe just throwing it out there, just the other day, I had something that was grating with me. And when I go into my head, I know that I've got to work something through. I thank that and I work it through because I want to be more heart-centered than head-centered in that space. But anyway, and the little message came down and it was, send that person a loving, kind message because you just don't know what they're going through. And I did. And within 30 seconds, they'd sent something beautiful back to me. And it was, I'd made up all this story in my head, which wasn't true. As in fact, I did something different rather than the old Deborah, dig my heels in, I'm not speaking to them unless they speak to me, all that kind of stuff. And I opened up my heart with sheer sincerity, and that came back. And it was like, I don't always have to do the things I do. I can do something else because that will have a different result. And it was blessed. So, Hamish, thank you. Now, people will want to get in touch with you. Have you got some details that you could share with us now? Everything will be in the show notes, but even if somebody wanted to give you a call, just so that you could leave that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for everything. I'd like to mention this because this cropped up at about 3 o'clock this morning. People keep on saying to me, how's your dad? How's your dad? Not how am I, how's your dad? And I thought, for goodness sake, nothing's changed. He's still. And then I stopped and I realized, how is he? I haven't actually thought about him. He's peaceful. He is appreciative of what I'm doing. He is bored. He is lonely. He has the time to say thank you. And I'm so caught up in, I've got to get home, do this, do that, that all these people saying, how's your dad? Oh, I don't care how my dad is. When I actually stop to realize he's doing all right. And
Good to hear.
that was worth waking up at 3 in the morning just to think about him as a person rather than someone I'm looking after. So
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to share that. Yeah.
Thank you, Hamish. Means a lot. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. But you can find me, hamishniven.com. That's the easiest way. And then I'm on LinkedIn, Hamish Niven, Facebook, Hamish Niven, TikTok, Hamish Niven. Yeah, hamishniven.com. Easy peasy.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And to everybody, thanks again for joining us. We'll be back again soon. And take care, everybody. Bye bye now.